This is the heater treater video for the Mercury Marquis Lincoln Town Car, Crown Victoria, and Mercury Marauder, and the years of application are listed on the slide. Generally, our business is replacing blend doors, but on this particular series of models, it's very difficult to access the blend door, and we have a core regulator kit that we use on this particular model. And what we are doing, instead of regulating temperature with a blend door moving back and forth, we're regulating temperature by cutting the heater core on and off. You get effective heat and AC, but the control is slightly different, and we'll talk more about that later. Here is a typical dash configuration, and this will vary from model to model and year to year, but we'll give you kind of an overview of what we're looking at. Next, we'll move into the engine compartment. This is a typical Grand Marquis engine compartment, and there will be variations depending upon the engine that was installed and some of the routing. Things are going to be a little different, but what we're going to be mainly concerned. Note that the heater hoses have one of those goofy little spring-loaded clips that you can only remove with a pair of channel locks. Our suggestion is to get some hose clamps to make it easier when we put it back together. Also, that is a 3/4 inch heater hose that goes into the heater core, and it's a good idea to get a foot or two of 3/4 inch heater hose just to make sure you can get the lengths right and get a proper repair and patch done. This is a close-up of the heater hoses in the area where they go into the firewall, and you'll see in this photo that we've made cuts into those hoses. You need to be careful when you make the cuts not to make them too close to the bend in the molded heater hoses that are connecting into the engine. We are going to slide these onto the end of the core regulator, and it is important to have enough of a bend in those that you can pull that out and fit it onto the core regulator part. This is a picture of the core regulator installed in the vehicle, and it's held in place by the heater hoses, so we're not making an actual attachment. As you start fitting it in place, the heater hoses come out and kind of come over a little bit of a ledge, and we're having to kind of make the valve fit up over that ledge. And you'll find that you need to cut a little of the peripheral plastic off the bottom of the piece in order to make it fit on correctly. And you need to make sure that you can get the molded, rounded parts onto the nipples without crimping the hose. Here's a close-up of the installed valve. The black wire has to go to a ground, and make sure you find a metal ground. First time I did this, I found a piece of plastic. That won't work, so make sure it is metal grounded, and you'll see the red wire going back across the engine compartment. Everything is held in place with worm gear clamps, and you can get that sealed very tightly. You won't see any issues with that. The red wire has to be threaded in through the firewall into the interior of the cabin. You can route the wire across the engine, either taping it to an existing wiring harness. You could put it inside an existing wiring harness. Whatever looks like it's out of the way and will be safe. Now we need to insert it through the firewall, and there is a rubber seal with the normal wiring harness going through it. It's very hard to put that wire in through the same channel as the wiring harness, and what we did on this vehicle was just use a ice pick to poke a small hole in the fringe of the rubber grommet and run the wire in through that. That's certainly the easiest way to do, and it's not going to have any sort of a leak or cause a major problem. It's just a convenient way to get the job done. Now we're moving to the inside of the car. We need to pull the red wire through from the engine compartment and route that wire down to the cigarette lighter compartment that's kind of on the bottom of the center console. And you can see it in this picture, and pull that open. Once you've done that, that entire console will come loose. It's a little tricky to find the right screws and springs, but it's not very difficult. And as you can see in the picture, we're going to install the rocker switch in the cigarette lighter outlet that's right in the center of that console. To um, do the installation, you need to pull the cigarette lighter out, and there's two little spring clips on the side. It will slide out, and then you'll need to cut off the bottom of the cigarette lighter and clamp the wires in place, and there are instructions with the kit on how it wires up. The one thing you want to make sure of is that we find a cigarette lighter that is key controlled so that the power is off when the key is off. If you didn't do that and you left the switch on, it would drain the battery in a couple of 3 or 4 days, but it's probably not worth taking the chances with it. The rocker switch is a round switch and is made to fit into the cigarette lighter opening. And as you can see here, I sealed it a little bit with some hot glue just to make sure that it wouldn't twist or rattle or come loose a little, but it's a fairly easy installation to make, and the wiring with the clips provided with the kit is very easy to lock into the system. We now have the core regulator hooked up, and we can cut the flow on and off through the heater core, and you may want to turn the key on and check that. The little switch will have a blue light when the heater core is off, meaning that you're in AC mode, blue for cool, and when the light is off, then you are circulating water through the heater core and putting heat into the system. You can also feel the little valve, and when you cut it on and off, you can feel motion in it to verify that it's connected correctly. The next thing we're going to do is move the blend door into the full-time heat position. In order to do that, we're going to have to disconnect the battery, and you're going to have to pull the airbag module on the passenger side. So fully open and remove the glove box, and there are two screws going up that hold the airbag in place, and that'll come out fairly easily and disconnect the wiring harness. When you get behind that, you'll see the air vent that goes to the passenger side, far passenger side, and that is directly in the way of getting to the actuator motor and moving the door. The picture you see already has a hole cut in the vent, but that's basically what we're going to do in order to move that section and get access to the blend door motor that's on top of the box. We're going to apply a little rough justice to the vehicle, and we're just going to hack that vent out of the way. There is no way to remove that vent without complete disassembly of the dash. So what we're going to do is basically cut it so that we can remove the end that connects into the fan motor and blend door. When we do the repair, we're going to have some HVAC metal tape, and this is what's used in your attic. Your air conditioning system relies on it, and it will do a complete and thorough job of patching this. So while the hacking looks bad, it's all going to be replaced and sealed with metal tape, and you can find that under the Duck brand, D-U-C-K, and they have it at Walmart or any of the big box hardware stores, and you'll find 1,000 uses for it, so it's great stuff to have. Anyway, we're going to hack that vent out of the way. There is one screw that holds it onto the module, and you'll be able to see it slightly. It's a Phillips screw that comes in from the back side. It's very hard to get a screwdriver on it, and since we're going to seal everything with duct tape anyway, I went ahead and just hacked that out of mine to make it easy to get the thing apart. Now, once we've removed that, you can see the vent outlet, and if you look closely, you can see the white actuator motor that's back on top of the plenum box. And here's a closer picture of the motor, and you'll be able to access it through the hole we cut by removing the vent. What we're going to do is to lodge that blend door into a heat-only position. And the easiest way to do that is to use a large screwdriver and just pry that motor open. Basically, we are destroying the actuator motor, but once we get the top of the motor off, we're able to move that door. You can usually grip it with the gear and put it into a heat position and lock it in place. The door needs to be turned in a fully counterclockwise position looking from the top, and the way it's done on this one is that we moved it into the correct position and then just filled the top of that motor with hot glue. So we basically made a stop to hold it in place. It doesn't have to be held, strongly in place because there are no forces that will move that door. The air blowing against it will tend to keep it closed. But what we've done is to just lock that door in place. This one was done with hot glue. You can come up with other methods, whatever suits your taste. And basically that finishes the repair. Now we have to put everything back together, put the vent in place, use the duct tape, the HVAC tape to seal everything up. You'll have a big silver glob of tape behind the glove box and airbag, but it'll never be seen, and it is structurally sound and is not going to rattle or make any problems. You'll see when you get it all back together and replace the glove box and close her up. This completes the repair on the vehicle, and again, the way we are controlling temperature is by cutting that heater core on and off. All air flows through the heater core. When the core is off, it is a neutral element and AC will flow normally. When the heater core is on, you have full heat, and it will certainly provide more than enough heat for the system. The fix is not a traditional way of doing fixes, but it is a permanent fix. It is an inexpensive way to get into the vehicle and regain control of heat and AC, and it's a very permanent and sturdy fix that is never going to break or give you problems again. We have additional information available on our website at www.heatertreater.net, and we do have full phone support and email support, and we'll provide any information or questions as you go through the process. Sorry that this video was so long, but we wanted to make sure that we got a good overview of the repair on this class of vehicles, and we think that you will find it to be a good alternative for a very common failure. And we think you'll find it to be a very effective repair on the Ford products. And while it's not an ideal solution, it does meet all the criteria of restoring control over the HVAC system in your